Welcome back, everyone. Tonight I'm bringing you 3 deeply unsettling stories from college students. People who thought they were just navigating the normal stresses of university life when something went terribly, disturbingly wrong. These aren't urban legends passed around dorm rooms. These are real experiences from real students who were just trying to get through their classes, make friends, and figure out their futures when they encountered something that changed everything. Before we begin, I want to know, are you in college right now? Living in a dorm? Renting your first apartment? There's something uniquely vulnerable about being a student. Living on your own for the first time, surrounded by strangers, trusting people you barely know. Drop a comment and let me know your experiences. And if you're watching this in your dorm room or apartment right now, maybe lock your door. You never know who's watching. Alright, let's begin. Story 1. The party with the green marks. I wasn't very social in college. I didn't get good grades, I wasn't in a fraternity, I didn't have a girlfriend, and I wasn't involved in campus activities. I wasn't a very happy kid during those years, if I'm being honest. I'm not complaining though. Life got better. I found an amazing woman in my late 30s and we've built a good life together. We live with 2 cats named Blue and Raz, and I'm planning on proposing soon. So things worked out. But back in college I was pretty isolated. I had 2 close friends, Bryson and Ian, who were in the same boat as me. We spent most weekends killing time in Bryson's dorm room, playing video games, watching movies, basically anything to avoid feeling lonely. That being said, we took every opportunity we could get when it came to parties. Most of the parties we managed to get invited to were off campus, not associated with any fraternities or the university itself. Sometimes we'd drive ridiculous distances just to attend a party. Once we drove over an hour just to stand around at some random house party for 30 minutes before leaving. We were pretty desperate for social interaction. One Friday afternoon during fall semester of junior year, Ian texted our group chat saying the girl he'd been talking to knew about a party happening that night, not too far from campus. Now, Ian tended to attract, let's call them alternative girls. I'm sure you know the type I'm talking about. Heavy eyeliner, dyed hair, into death metal and anime. Bryson joked that he didn't want to go to some death metal emo anime party, which honestly made me laugh because it was probably accurate. But Ian was adamant that this would be a normal party. She's not like that, he insisted. This is just a regular house party. Trust me. It's not like we had anything better to do, so we agreed. Bryson convinced his older brother Chris to be our designated driver. Chris didn't drink anyway and said he'd be down to drive us. Everything was looking good. As we were driving to the party, about a 40-minute drive from campus, Ian started complaining about the girl he'd been talking to. Apparently, she hadn't responded to his messages in several hours. She's probably just busy getting ready or whatever, Bryson said from the front seat. No, something's wrong, Ian insisted, staring at his phone. She was responding instantly earlier, and now nothing. This wasn't surprising, considering Ian's track record with women. He tended to come on too strong, get too attached too quickly. But he was genuinely upset about it. I'm having second thoughts about even going, he said. Bryson and I exchanged looks. We were already 30 minutes into the drive. There was no way we were turning around now. Dude, you're fine, I said. Don't let this ruin the night. Maybe she just fell asleep or her phone died. A few minutes later, Ian made a sound of disbelief. Her profile is gone. What do you mean? I asked. Her Snapchat profile. It's completely gone. Like she deleted her account or something. Bryson turned around in the passenger seat. Bro, she blocked you. Ian's face fell. No, she wouldn't. She blocked you, Bryson repeated. She probably decided to go to the party with someone else and didn't want you showing up. Ian went silent, staring out the window. He looked genuinely hurt, which made me feel bad for him despite how predictable this whole situation was. The rest of the drive was awkward. Ian pouted in silence while Bryson and I made small talk with Chris about his job and whether he was seeing anyone. When we finally reached the party location, my mood immediately improved. The house was massive, easily the biggest house on the block, maybe the biggest house I'd seen in person. It was a sprawling 2-story structure with a huge front lawn, expensive cars parked along the street, lights blazing from every window. Okay, this looks promising, Bryson said. Ian still wasn't ready to go in. I need a buzz first. I need to take my mind off this whole situation. Bryson and I weren't about to object to drinking, so we told Chris to park a little further down the street. We cracked open the beers we'd brought and pre-gamed in the car for about 20 minutes, watching as dozens of people entered the house. It genuinely looked like it was going to be a great party. Once Ian was satisfied with his buzz, after about 4 beers, The four of us got out of the car and started walking toward the house. The street was lined with expensive vehicles. BMWs, Mercedes, even a Tesla. These were not typical college student cars. "Damn, who are these people?" I muttered. Bryson shrugged. "Rich kids probably. Maybe grad students." We reached the front door, which was standing wide open. Music floated out, though not the kind of music I'd expected. We stepped inside and I immediately felt like something was off. For one thing, all the lights were on. And I don't mean ambient lighting or colored bulbs or anything atmospheric. I mean bright, overhead lights. Every single one in the entire house was on at full brightness. Like someone was preparing for a dinner party or a business meeting, not a college party. Second, the people. Almost everyone there was dressed very nicely. Button-down shirts, dress pants, blouses, skirts. The kind of clothes you'd wear to a semi-formal event or a nice dinner. Bryson and I were wearing jeans and hoodies. Ian had on cargo shorts and a graphic t-shirt. We looked completely out of place. Third, the music. Instead of the hip-hop or electronic dance music you'd expect at a college party, they were playing this weird ethereal stuff. Almost dreamy, with no lyrics. Just haunting instrumental melodies that sounded vaguely Middle Eastern or maybe just experimental. It wasn't bad necessarily, but it was bizarre for a party. The four of us stood in the entryway looking at each other with confused expressions. "What the hell kind of party is this?" Bryson whispered. "I have no idea," Ian said. "I swear she didn't say anything about it being like this." "Well, we're here now," I said. "Might as well explore a bit." We walked through the house, which was absolutely packed with people. The main living room had probably 50 people in it, all standing around talking in small groups, holding wine glasses and beer bottles. There was alcohol everywhere, kegs in the kitchen, bottles of expensive-looking liquor on every counter, a literal wine rack in the dining room. At least that part was normal. We helped ourselves to drinks and continued exploring. As we moved through the house, I started noticing something strange. People kept making eye contact with me, just for a split second, and then immediately looking away. It happened over and over. Someone would glance at me, our eyes would meet, and they'd quickly look somewhere else. At first, I thought maybe I had something on my face or in my teeth. But the more it happened, the more uncomfortable I became. "Is anyone else getting stared at?" I asked Bryson. "Yeah, actually," he said. "I thought I was imagining it." Despite the weird atmosphere, we were actually having a decent time. The alcohol was free and plentiful, the house was interesting to explore, and there were attractive people everywhere. Chris said he was getting bored, which made sense since he wasn't drinking, and told us he was going to go smoke in his car. We told him we'd text him when we were ready to leave. A few minutes after Chris left, something unexpected happened. A group of 3 girls approached us. This never happened to us. We weren't the kind of guys who got approached by women at parties. Usually we stood awkwardly by the wall hoping someone would talk to us. But these 3 girls walked right up to us with big smiles, introducing themselves as Tina, Lauren, and Sarah. They immediately started flirting with us. Not subtle flirting either, very obvious, direct flirting. Compliments, touching our arms, laughing at things that weren't even jokes. It was honestly kind of suspicious how interested they seemed, but we weren't about to question it. We were college guys who rarely got female attention. We were going to ride this out. After a few minutes of conversation, Tina pulled out a bottle of tequila from somewhere, I don't even know where she'd been hiding it, and suggested we all take shots. "There's an entrance fee for hanging out with us," Lauren said with a playful smile, holding up the bottle. I thought she was joking, but she was completely serious. The 3 of them stood there expectantly, waiting for us to drink. Not wanting to look uncool or ruin the vibe, we each took the bottle and drank. The tequila burned going down, but it gave us all a nice warm buzz. From that point on, the 6 of us stuck together, drinking, talking, occasionally dancing to that weird atmospheric music. It was going surprisingly well. At one point, I was standing close to Tina, trying to hear what she was saying over the music, when I noticed something strange on her neck. It was a mark. A thin, solid line, maybe an inch long, that looked like it had been drawn with a green Sharpie. The line was perfectly straight and very thin, positioned just below her jawline on the left side of her neck. At first, I thought maybe it was a weird makeup thing or a birthmark or even a scar. But the color was so vivid, bright green, almost neon, and it looked completely artificial. I debated asking her about it, but I didn't want to potentially offend her or make things awkward when everything was going so well. Maybe it was something she was self-conscious about. Once I'd seen it though, I couldn't unsee it. Every time I looked at her, my eyes were drawn to that strange green line. I decided to let it go and kept flirting with her, wondering if this night would end with us hooking up. About 20 minutes later, I noticed Bryson and Lauren starting to wander toward the stairs. He shot me a quick look, that "wish me luck" expression, before they disappeared upstairs. I was genuinely happy for him. Bryson was a good guy who deserved to have some fun. Pretty soon after that, I saw Ian and Sarah also heading toward the stairs, holding hands. That left just me and Tina downstairs. I was getting increasingly nervous. I wanted to suggest we go somewhere more private, but I was terrified of saying the wrong thing and ruining the moment. Despite the alcohol, I could feel myself getting anxious, sweaty palms, racing thoughts, second-guessing every word I said. "I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick," I finally said. "I'll be right back." She smiled. "Don't take too long." I asked someone where the bathroom was and they pointed me toward a hallway off the kitchen. When I got there, the door was closed, so I stood outside and waited. After about 30 seconds, the door opened and a man stepped out. He was tall, probably 6 feet 3 inches or 6 feet 4 inches, and older, maybe in his mid-30s. He was wearing a crisp white button-down shirt and expensive-looking linen pants. His hair was slicked back and he had this intense, almost predatory look about him. I tried to slip past him into the bathroom, but I accidentally bumped into his shoulder. I turned back, expecting him to say, "Excuse me," or just keep walking. Instead, he just stood there, staring at me. Not just a casual glance, a full, unwavering stare. He was sizing me up, analyzing me like I was some kind of specimen he was studying. It was one of the strangest, most uncomfortable moments of my life. After several seconds of this bizarre staring contest, I was about to say something when I noticed it. On his neck. The same mark I'd seen on Tina. A thin, bright green line. Same length. Same color. Same position on the neck, just below the jawline on the left side. It was identical. Against my better judgment, feeling emboldened by alcohol and irritation, I asked, "What's your problem, man?" He smirked slightly, his expression shifting from blank to amused. He shook his head slowly like I'd just said something funny. Then, in a low, measured voice, he asked, "Who invited you here?" I didn't know how to answer that. The truth was complicated. Ian's Snapchat girl who'd blocked him and whose name I barely remembered. "Callista," I blurted out, saying the first name that came to mind. His eyebrows raised slightly. He chuckled, a short, humorless sound, and looked up at the ceiling like he was searching his memory. Then he looked back at me, his smile completely gone now. His expression had turned cold, almost threatening. In that same low voice, he repeated her name slowly. "Callista." Then he gestured vaguely around the party, sweeping his arm to indicate the crowded house. "Do you see Callista here?" I didn't know what to say. My mouth had gone dry. He took a step closer to me and I instinctively took a step back. "I didn't think so," he said quietly. Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. Then I slammed the bathroom door shut and locked it, needing a moment to collect myself. That was so strange. The way he'd looked at me. The way he'd said Callista's name. And most of all, that green mark on his neck, identical to the one on Tina's neck. What the hell was going on at this party? I used the bathroom quickly, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to just go back to Tina and pretend nothing had happened. But another part of me, the part that had just been thoroughly creeped out by that encounter, wanted to find my friends and leave. When I came out of the bathroom, I looked around for the tall man, but I couldn't see him anywhere in the crowd. Instead, I started really looking at people, specifically at their necks, and that's when I saw it. 2 more people, a woman in a black dress and a guy in a sport coat, both had the exact same green mark. Same color, same length, same position. My skin started crawling. I needed to find Bryson and Ian. Immediately. I pushed through the crowd toward the stairs, scanning people's necks as I went. Not everyone had the mark, maybe 1 out of every 10 or 15 people. But everyone who had it had the exact same mark. Same shade of green, same placement, same everything. It was like they'd all been branded or marked somehow. I was starting to genuinely panic now. This wasn't just weird, this was wrong. Something was very wrong at this party. I made it to the stairs and started climbing, looking for my friends. Thankfully, as I was halfway up, Bryson and Ian were coming down. "There you are," I said, grabbing Bryson's arm. "We need to talk. Now." They both laughed. "Dude, what's your problem?" Ian said. "Just follow me," I said urgently, pulling them toward an empty hallway near the kitchen. Once we were somewhat alone, I quickly explained everything. The green marks on people's necks, the strange man in the bathroom, the way he'd reacted when I said Callista's name. They both burst out laughing. "Bro, you're just drunk," Bryson said, still grinning. And jealous that we got laid and you didn't, Ian added. I'm serious, I insisted. People here have these weird identical marks on their necks. It's not normal. It's probably just a makeup thing, Bryson said. Or maybe it's like a theme party or something and we just didn't know. Where's your girl? I asked Bryson. Why isn't she with you? She told me to meet her back upstairs in 20 minutes, he said with a satisfied smile. Same, Ian said. Mine said the same thing. That was weird too. Why would they both say the exact same thing? Look, just follow me, I said. I'll prove it. I'll show you people with these marks. But they weren't budging. They were riding the high of hooking up, probably the first time either of them had in months, and they didn't want to deal with my paranoid theories. I was about to give up when Ian turned his head to look at something and I saw it. My stomach dropped. On Ian's neck, just below his jaw on the left side, was a thin red line. Not green-red, but the same length, same thickness, same position as all the green marks I'd been seeing. What the fuck? I whispered. I immediately checked Bryson's neck. Same thing, a thin red line in the exact same spot. Guys, I said, my voice shaking now. You both have marks on your necks. What are you talking about? Bryson said. I pulled out my phone and turned on the camera, switching it to selfie mode so Ian could see. His eyes widened when he saw the red line on his neck. What the hell? Bryson looked too, touching the mark on his own neck. Is this makeup? It's probably just from the girls, Ian said, trying to rationalize it. Maybe they were wearing some kind of lipstick or something and it rubbed off. That's not lipstick, I said. It's too perfect, too straight. Bryson was starting to believe me now. I could see it in his face, the realization that something was off. We need to leave, I said. Right now. Ian still hesitated. I want to go back and see Sarah though. No, I said firmly. We're leaving. Something is seriously wrong here. Just then a guy walked past us in the hallway. He was young, maybe our age, wearing a nice shirt and dress pants. He glanced at each of us, lingering just a moment too long on our faces, before continuing past. On his neck was a bright green mark, exactly like all the others. That did it. Bryson grabbed Ian's arm. We're leaving. Now. We pushed through the crowd toward the front door, moving as quickly as we could without running. It felt like everyone in the house was watching us, but no one tried to stop us. We burst out the front door and ran down the street toward Chris's car, our hearts pounding. Chris was sitting in the driver's seat, scrolling through his phone. He looked up in surprise when we yanked the car doors open and piled in. Drive? Bryson said. Just drive. What happened? Chris asked, but he put the car in drive and started pulling away from the curb. As we were leaving, both Ian and Bryson's phones started blowing up with notifications. Text messages, Snapchats, all from the girls they'd been with. Where did you go? Why did you leave? Come back upstairs. We were having fun. But here's what freaked us out. Those girls hadn't been anywhere near us when we left. They were upstairs. How could they possibly know we'd left the party already? Unless someone had told them. Unless everyone at that party was communicating somehow. Block them, I said. Block those numbers right now. Both of them did. We drove in silence for about 10 minutes before anyone spoke. What the hell was that party? Chris finally asked. None of us had a good answer. Everyone I've told this story to over the years has their own theory about what was happening. Some people think it was a cult recruitment thing. Others think it was some kind of hazing ritual or secret society initiation. Some people have suggested it was a sex trafficking operation, and that the marks indicated who had been claimed versus who was still a target. I really don't know what to think. But I do know this. I'm glad that man in the bathroom tipped me off. I'm glad I noticed those marks when I did. Because I genuinely believe that if we'd stayed, if my friends had gone back upstairs to meet those girls, something bad would have happened. We never saw those girls again. We never heard about the party again. And to this day, none of us have any idea what the green and red marks meant. But sometimes, late at night, I think about how close we came to finding out. Story 2, The Stolen Backpack. I'm a graduate student studying civil engineering at Purdue University. I started the program about 6 months ago, and overall, things were going pretty well. Classes were challenging but manageable. I'd made a couple of friends in my cohort, and I'd found a decent apartment that I could actually afford on my graduate stipend. The landlord was pretty sketchy. One of those guys who owns a dozen properties and clearly doesn't care about maintenance as long as the rent check's clear. But the place was cheap and the location worked for me. I had a car and lived about 20 minutes from campus, but I didn't mind the drive. The only real downside was that my apartment was in a sketchy part of town. The kind of area where you don't walk around at night, where you hear sirens more often than you'd like, where packages sometimes get stolen from doorsteps. But I'm a guy in my mid-20s and I figured I could handle myself. I kept my doors locked, didn't leave valuables visible in my car, and minded my own business. For the first few months, everything was completely normal. Then my backpack got stolen. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I had a 3-hour gap between classes, and I'd gone to one of the lecture halls in the engineering building to work on an assignment. I'd been sitting at a table near the back of the room for about an hour when I needed to use the bathroom. Like an absolute idiot, I left my backpack on the table. I was only going to be gone for 2 minutes and there were other students in the room, so I figured it would be fine. When I came back, my backpack was gone. I looked around, thinking maybe someone had moved it or I'd misremembered where I was sitting. But no, it was definitely gone. Stolen. I felt sick. My laptop was in that backpack. So was my wallet, my keys, my phone charger, and a bunch of important class materials. I immediately went to building security and reported it, but they checked the camera footage and, of course, that specific section of the lecture hall was in a blind spot. No cameras covering that table. There was literally nothing anyone could do. I spent the rest of that day canceling my credit and debit cards, reporting my lost student ID, and figuring out how to get into my apartment without keys. I had to call my landlord and explain what happened, and he begrudgingly agreed to let me in and said he'd order new keys, but it would take a few days. I also had to start shopping for a replacement laptop, which was a financial nightmare. Graduate students don't exactly have money lying around. The whole situation sucked, but I tried to be philosophical about it. Things happen. Someone saw an opportunity and took it. It was a lesson learned about being more careful with my belongings. I reported it to campus police just to have it on record, but I knew they weren't going to find my stuff or catch whoever took it. It wasn't until a few days later that I realized the situation was so much worse than I'd thought. I came home from campus one evening, this was maybe 4 or 5 days after the theft, and found something slipped under my apartment door. At first, I assumed it was just a note from my landlord about maintenance or something. But when I picked it up and opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a handwritten note on plain white paper. The handwriting was neat, almost too neat, like someone had carefully written out each word. All it said was, "I see you." No name. No signature. No explanation. Just those 3 words. I stood in my doorway staring at the note, trying to make sense of it. Then the realization hit me like a freight train. Whoever stole my backpack had gone through my laptop. They'd somehow accessed my files, my documents, my browser history, and found my address. My apartment address had been saved in various forms and documents on my computer. And whoever it was now knew where I lived. But that wasn't even the worst part. Whoever stole my backpack also had my keys, which meant they potentially had access to my apartment. My hands started shaking. I went inside quickly, locked the door behind me, and immediately engaged the deadbolt. Even if someone had a copy of my keys, they wouldn't be able to get through the deadbolt. That was the only thing that made me feel even slightly safe. Over the next week, I got more notes. They were always the same, slipped under my door while I was either at class or asleep. All handwritten, all short messages. "I know what you did. You can't hide. Watch yourself." Each one made me more paranoid. I started jumping at every sound, checking over my shoulder constantly, barely sleeping. The thing is, I hadn't done anything wrong. At least, nothing I could think of that would warrant this kind of harassment. But the notes made it sound like I was being punished for something. Whoever had my laptop had probably gone through everything. My emails, my browsing history, my documents. Who knows what they'd found or what conclusions they'd drawn about me. I seriously debated going to the police, but what would I even tell them? Someone was leaving vague, threatening notes under my door? They'd probably just tell me to be more careful and file a report that would go nowhere. I decided to wait it out, hoping whoever was messing with me would get bored. One night about a week and a half after the first note, I was getting ready for bed around 11 p.m. when I noticed something through my window. My apartment was on the 2nd floor, and my bedroom window faced the parking lot. I had blinds that I usually kept half closed, but they were open enough that I could see outside. It was dark out, but there was a street light in the parking lot that provided some illumination. I was walking past the window when I saw it, a flash of light. Quick, bright, like someone had taken a photo. I immediately ducked down and pulled the blinds all the way closed, my heart racing. Had someone just taken a picture of me? Through my window? I stayed crouched there for a minute, trying to decide if I'd really seen what I thought I'd seen. Maybe it was just car headlights reflecting off something. Maybe I was being paranoid. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching me, photographing me. That night I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every car passing by made me think someone was coming for me. Things escalated from there. I started noticing small changes around my apartment. Things being moved. At first, they were so subtle I thought I was going crazy. My shoes would be in a different spot than where I'd left them. My jacket would be draped over a chair instead of hung on the coat rack. A book would be moved from the coffee table to the kitchen counter. Little things that I could explain away if I tried hard enough. Maybe I'd moved them and forgotten. Maybe I was just stressed and not paying attention. But then one day I came home from class to find my apartment completely torn apart. My bed sheets had been stripped off and thrown on the floor. My dresser drawers were pulled open, clothes scattered everywhere. Books knocked off shelves. My bathroom cabinet doors standing open, toiletries moved around. It looked like someone had ransacked the place looking for something. But nothing was stolen. Nothing valuable was missing. It was like someone had just wanted to violate my space, to let me know they could get in whenever they wanted. I immediately called the police. 2 officers came out and took a report. They walked through the apartment, took photos of the mess, dusted for fingerprints. But there was no sign of forced entry. None of the windows had been jimmied open. The door locks showed no signs of tampering. The officers looked at each other with that skeptical expression cops get when they think you're wasting their time. "Do you have any enemies?" one of them asked. "Anyone who might want to mess with you?" "No," I said. "I'm a graduate student. I keep to myself. I don't have conflicts with anyone." "And you said your keys were stolen about 2 weeks ago?" "Yes," I said, explaining the whole backpack situation. "Have you had the locks changed?" he asked. "No," I admitted. "My landlord said he would, but he keeps putting it off." The officers exchanged another look. "You need to get those locks changed immediately," one said. "Call your landlord again. Tell him it's an emergency. If he won't do it, you have the right to hire a locksmith yourself and deduct the cost from your rent." After they left, I called my landlord and demanded, not asked, demanded, that he change the locks immediately. He gave me the runaround. Said he was waiting for the locksmith to have availability. Said it wasn't an emergency since I had the deadbolt. Said he'd get to it when he could. I told him my apartment had been broken into. I told him the police had been there. I told him if he didn't change the locks within 24 hours, I'd hire someone myself and send him the bill. He actually laughed. "Good luck getting anyone out there that fast," he said and hung up. I called him back immediately. No answer. I texted him. No response. Over the next few hours, I called him probably a dozen times. He stopped answering completely. That was 2 days ago. I've barely left my apartment since then. I called in sick to my classes yesterday and today because I'm terrified to leave. What if whoever is doing this is watching my schedule? What if they know when I'm supposed to be at class? Last night I barely slept at all. Every sound in the building made me jump. I kept the deadbolt locked and pushed my dresser in front of the door for extra security. This morning I woke up to 3 new text messages from unknown numbers. "Stop hiding. I know you're in there. We need to talk." I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. I can't stay locked in this apartment forever. But I'm terrified to leave. I've been thinking about setting a trap. The person doing this clearly has access to my apartment. They know my class schedule, or at least they probably do since it was on my laptop. So here's my plan. I'm going to pretend to leave for class this morning. I'm going to pack my new backpack, walk out to my car, and drive away like I normally would. But instead of going to campus, I'm going to park a few blocks away and sneak back to my apartment building. I'm going to hide somewhere, maybe in the stairwell or the laundry room, and wait. If someone tries to enter my apartment while I'm gone, I'll catch them in the act. I'll get photos, evidence, and call the police immediately. It's risky, I know. What if they're violent? What if there's more than one person? But I can't keep living like this. I need to know who's doing this and why. I'm going to post an update after I try this. Hopefully with good news. Wish me luck. Update posted 8 hours later. I'm shaking as I write this. My plan worked. Sort of. I left my apartment this morning at 9 a.m. like I normally would for my Tuesday class. I got in my car, drove around the block, and parked in a grocery store parking lot about 3 blocks away. Then I walked back to my apartment building and entered through the side entrance that's usually propped open for maintenance. I hid in the stairwell between the first and second floors, positioning myself where I could see anyone who came up the stairs or walked down the second floor hallway toward my apartment. I waited for almost an hour. My legs were cramping. I was starting to think this was a stupid idea. Then I heard the front entrance door open. Footsteps in the lobby. Someone coming up the stairs. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. A figure appeared, a man probably in his 30s wearing jeans and a dark hoodie. I didn't recognize him. He walked past me without noticing. I was in the shadows of the stairwell and headed straight for my apartment door. I pulled out my phone and started recording video. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. My key. The one that had been on my keychain when my backpack was stolen. He unlocked my door and walked inside. I stood there for a moment, completely frozen, trying to decide what to do. Call the police? Confront him? Run. Before I could decide, I heard him inside my apartment. He was talking to someone on the phone. "Yeah, I'm inside now," I heard him say. "Place is empty. He definitely left for class." A pause while the other person responded. "I don't know, man. We've been doing this for 2 weeks and nothing. Maybe we should just..." Another pause. "Yeah, I know. Okay, I'll keep looking." I heard him moving around my apartment. Opening drawers. Moving things. That's when I called 911. I whispered into the phone, explaining the situation. The operator told me to get out of the building immediately and wait for police outside. But I didn't. I stayed in the stairwell, watching my door, making sure he didn't leave before the cops arrived. About 6 minutes later, which felt like an eternity, I heard sirens. The man must have heard them too, because suddenly he came running out of my apartment. He saw me standing in the stairwell and our eyes met for just a second. There was this moment of mutual recognition. Him realizing I'd caught him, me realizing he was about to run. He bolted for the stairs, trying to get past me. I don't know what came over me, but I stuck my foot out and tripped him. He went down hard, tumbling down the stairs and hitting the landing. By the time he got his bearings, 2 police officers were at the bottom of the stairs, guns drawn, yelling at him to get on the ground. He was arrested. They found my apartment key in his pocket, along with my student ID and one of my credit cards that I'd reported stolen. At the police station, I gave a full statement. They told me they were charging him with burglary, stalking, and harassment. But here's the thing that's still freaking me out. When they questioned him, he said he'd been hired to do this. Someone paid him to steal my backpack, access my laptop, and then harass me. He wouldn't say who hired him or why. He said he was just doing a job and didn't ask questions. The police are still investigating, but as of right now, I have no idea who wanted this done to me or why. I'm staying with a friend for now. I don't feel safe going back to that apartment even though the guy is in custody. Because somewhere out there, someone paid to have me terrorized. And I have no idea who they are or what I did to deserve it. Story 3: The Email Hack. I go to Temple University in Philadelphia, and I live in a small apartment near campus. It's on the 2nd floor of an older building, which means I can hear pretty much everything going on outside. Footsteps on the sidewalk, cars passing by, neighbors coming and going. I'm a junior majoring in communications, and up until a few weeks ago, my biggest concerns were getting good grades and figuring out what I wanted to do after graduation. Then everything fell apart. It started with a breakup. My boyfriend Ben and I had been together for 2 years, since freshman year. We'd been arguing a lot for the past few months, and it was obvious things weren't going to work out, so we decided to end it. It wasn't a horrible breakup, but it wasn't great either. We both said some things we probably shouldn't have. But overall, it felt like the right decision. I blocked him on everything: Instagram, Snapchat, his phone number, because I knew if I didn't, I'd be tempted to text him when I was drunk or lonely. A few days after the breakup, I started hearing strange noises outside my apartment at night. Not normal city noises, these were different. Footsteps on the fire escape. Quiet shuffling outside my window. The kind of sounds that make you freeze and hold your breath, straining to hear more. At first, I figured it was just my imagination. I was stressed from the breakup, stressed from school, not sleeping well. My mind was playing tricks on me. But the sounds kept happening. Every night. Always between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Eventually, I came to accept that it was probably Ben. He knew where I lived, obviously. And Ben was one of the sweetest, most harmless guys I'd ever met. I mean that genuinely. He'd never do anything violent or scary. He was probably just missing me and walking by my building, working up the courage to text me or something. It was weird and maybe a little creepy, but I didn't feel threatened. I figured he'd get over it eventually. Plus, I was already stressed about other things. Specifically, a huge group project for my media production class. The project was a major component of our final grade. My group had been working on it for weeks, creating a short documentary-style video about student life at Temple. I was responsible for the final editing and submission. I'd spent hours putting everything together in Adobe Premiere, making sure all the interviews were properly mixed, the graphics looked professional, the pacing was right. I finished the video around 11:30 p.m. on a Thursday, the night before it was due. I was exhausted but also proud of what we'd created. It was good work. I exported the final version, uploaded it to my email and sent it to my professor. Subject line: Group 4 Final Project, Student Life Documentary. I attached the file, hit send and watched the email successfully deliver. Relief washed over me. I went to bed feeling accomplished, ready to present the video in class the next day. The next morning, I walked into the lecture hall feeling nervous but excited. My 3 group members were already there, sitting in the front row. When it was our turn to present, the professor pulled up his laptop and connected it to the projector. "All right, Group 4, he said. "Let's see what you've got." He opened his email, found my message, and downloaded the attachment. I was sitting in the second row, watching the screen, mentally rehearsing what I was going to say during our post-presentation Q&A. The professor clicked play. The video started, and my stomach immediately dropped. It wasn't our documentary. Instead, the screen showed grainy footage of someone wearing a scream mask, the iconic white ghost face from the horror movies. The person was sitting in what looked like a basement or garage, surrounded by dim lighting and exposed brick walls. And they were talking. Not to me specifically, but to everyone? The camera? I couldn't tell. They started ranting. About me. About my professor. About the government, about society, about how people like us were ruining everything. The things they said were disgusting. Sexist, vulgar, threatening. I don't even want to repeat most of it. The worst part was that some of the rant referenced specific things about me, my major, my hometown, details that weren't public knowledge. The entire class was silent, watching this horrifying video play out on the projector screen. My professor let it play for maybe 15 more seconds, probably because he was in shock before finally pausing it. His face was pale. He looked at me with an expression I'll never forget, confusion, concern, and maybe a hint of suspicion. I was frozen in my seat. I wanted to cry, to scream, to run out of the room. But I couldn't move. I literally couldn't breathe. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. Everyone staring. The professor cleared his throat. We're going to take a short break. Everyone step outside for a moment. Group 4, please stay. As the other students filed out, many of them whispering to each other, some laughing, I finally broke down. I started crying, my whole body shaking. My group members just stared at me like I'd betrayed them. When the room was empty, the professor asked me what happened. Through tears, I tried to explain. I told him I had no idea how that video got there. I told him I'd sent the correct video last night. I told him someone must have hacked my email and replaced the attachment. He looked skeptical, but he said he'd investigate. He pulled up his email on his laptop and showed me. There were 2 videos attached to my email. The first one, sent at 11:47 p.m., was our actual documentary. It was still there in the email thread. But the second one, sent at 2:34 a.m., was the one he just played. The one with the scream mask. I had not sent that second video. I'd been asleep at 2:34 a.m. Someone hacked my account, I said desperately. I swear, I didn't send that second video. The professor said he'd need to report this to the dean of students and the IT department. He told me to go home, change my passwords, and gather any evidence I had that my account had been compromised. The next few days were a bureaucratic nightmare. Meetings with university administrators, IT security analyzing my account logs, statements from my group members, verification that the first video was the legitimate assignment. Eventually, the university concluded that my account had been hacked, and I was cleared of any wrongdoing. My group got to resubmit the actual documentary and we ended up getting an A. But nothing could erase the humiliation. Word spread across campus fast. People I didn't even know had heard about the girl whose project got replaced with a psycho video. I felt like I couldn't show my face anywhere. And I absolutely knew, that this wasn't over. About a week after the email incident, I woke up one morning to find myself logged out of Snapchat. That only happens when someone else logs into your account from a different device, which forces you out. My heart sank. I quickly reset my password and logged back in, dreading what I might find. Someone had accessed my Snapchat memories, my saved snaps, my private photos. I won't go into details, but there was stuff in there I absolutely did not want anyone to see. Personal photos, messages, things I'd saved thinking they were private and secure. I felt violated in a way I can't even describe. Like someone had broken into my bedroom and gone through my most private belongings. I called the police immediately and explained everything. The breakup with Ben, the weird noises outside my apartment, the email hack, now the Snapchat breach. To my surprise, Ben agreed to let them question him. He came down to the station voluntarily. The police were able to confirm that Ben wasn't behind any of it. He had alibis for the times when my accounts were accessed, and his devices showed no evidence of accessing my accounts. But he did admit to something that made my blood run cold. Right after we broke up, when he was angry and hurt, he posted about me on some kind of online forum. He said he'd vented about our relationship and shared some personal information about me. Not my passwords, he swore, but details like my major, my hometown, my email address, my social media handles. He claimed he never posted any of my passwords. But the police explained that if my passwords were easy to guess, and if I'd used the same password for multiple accounts, then anyone reading that forum post would have had everything they needed to hack me. And like an idiot, I had used the same password for everything. A password based on my birthday and my cat's name. Not exactly Fort Knox level security. The police told me there wasn't much they could do. Ben had posted public information, technically, and the actual hacking was being done by someone anonymous who'd seen his post. Without a suspect or concrete evidence, they couldn't pursue charges. I changed all my passwords immediately, made them complex, unique for each account, stored them in a password manager. But I knew it might already be too late. For a few weeks, nothing happened. I started to think that maybe the hacker had gotten bored or scared off when they realized the police were involved. Then, about a week ago, random people started adding me on Snapchat. Accounts with weird usernames, no profile pictures, clearly fake. I didn't accept any of them. But one day, out of morbid curiosity, I did. Just to see what would happen. The account immediately sent me photos. Photos of me. Photos I'd saved privately in my Snapchat memories. My hands started shaking. I blocked the account immediately and reported it. But more accounts kept adding me. Sometimes 5 or 6 a day. I knew it was the same person creating new accounts over and over. I stopped accepting any friend requests at all. Changed my Snapchat settings to private, made it so only people I'd already added could contact me. But the requests kept coming. Daily. Sometimes multiple times a day. The worst part is that they know where I live. They've been outside my apartment. I'm certain of it now. Those noises weren't Ben. They were whoever's been doing this. And I absolutely know, that eventually they're going to escalate. What if ignoring them makes them angry? What if they decide to post my private photos somewhere public? What if they show up at my apartment? I've considered moving, but I can't afford to break my lease. I've considered taking a semester off, but I'd lose my scholarship. I feel trapped. The police have my case file, but they've made it clear there's nothing they can actively do unless the person makes a specific threat or commits a crime they can prove. I've started keeping my curtains closed at all times. I don't go anywhere alone at night. I look over my shoulder constantly. And every time my phone buzzes with a new Snapchat friend request, my heart stops. Because I know it's them. Watching. Waiting. Sending me a reminder that they have my private photos, my personal information, my home address. I don't know how to make it stop. And I'm terrified of what they'll do next. 3 students. 3 situations that spiraled out of control. 3 people whose lives were changed by a stolen backpack, a hacked email, or a party they should never have attended. I want to thank everyone who shared their experiences. Being a student is hard enough without dealing with stalkers, hackers, or bizarre situations you can't explain. If you're in college right now, please be careful. Never leave your belongings unattended, even for a minute. Use strong, unique passwords for every account. Be wary of parties or social situations that feel off. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything if you're being harassed. Don't hesitate to involve campus police or local authorities. These stories are real. They happen to real people. And they could happen to anyone. If you found value in tonight's episode, please like and subscribe. Share these stories with your friends, especially those in college who might need to hear them. Stay safe out there. Stay vigilant. And remember, not every party is what it seems, not every theft is just bad luck, and not every breakup stays in the past. Until next time.